Hi everyone, sharing my thoughts on the themes and pointing out some Easter eggs after finishing We Are All Trying Here. These past 6 to 7 weeks have been a lot of fun. I've been looking forward to the weekend, like even more than usual, in excitement of seeing new episodes. Now that it's all over, I think it could have used 16 or even 20 episodes. 12 felt a little too short. Fans of my Mr. and my Liberation Notes will feel right at home because Park Haeyoung, who is my favorite screenwriter for K-dramas, continues to deliver on her trademark storytelling style. I feel a lot of K-dramas these days follow a familiar formula, like the rom-com with typical amounts of funny scenes, funny situations, and fantastical characters. And I'm not saying that's bad. I think there is a time and place when you want that sort of distraction. But to me, it can feel kind of like junk food. Like you can't have too much of it. Sometimes you want a good, healthy meal with real people and real human stories. We Are All Trying Here is not about the dopa shots. I would say it's more akin to bringing a warm blanket, sitting in front of a fireplace and drinking a warm cup of coffee. Or it's like sitting out on a lawn chair by a summer lake with a cool beer while watching the sunset. Koo Kyo-hwan plays Dong-man, a perpetually aspiring film director. He is the only one among his friends who has failed to debut as a director despite trying for 20 years. He fills the void in his heart with constant chatter and sometimes trash talking about his friends. A bit of a heads up, I think it is easy to be turned off by his behavior in the earlier episodes. Even if there is a reason behind the obnoxiousness, I can understand if you find it annoying and want to stop watching. But I urge you to keep at it because Dong-man will eventually grow on you. The distractingly attractive Ko Yoon-jung plays Pyeon Euna, and she is the only one who's able to see through Dong-man's annoying facade, partly because she recognizes a lot of her personal struggles in him. The characters and setting revolve around the movie industry, so there are a lot of nuggets for Korean movie fans. Scattered throughout the show are movie posters made by the central characters revolving around Dong-man. For example, Decision to Stay, which is a riff on Decision to Leave by the Korean legendary director Park Chan-wook. Dong-man also watches a clip of Decision to Leave from his room. Ex-Family and Ex-Siblings, I think, is made by one of Dong-man's friends. And I'm guessing Ex-Siblings is part 1 and Ex-Family is the sequel. There are also some fun Easter eggs related to Park Hae-young fans in general. The young woman caring for her elderly grandmother was very reminiscent of IU in My Mister. Dong-man's brother Hwang Jin-man is always accompanied with a bottle of soju. But it's not just him. Like, there's a lot of drinking in Park Hae-young dramas. I do understand that some social lubricant is probably needed for these characters to say a lot of existential dialogue, but I noticed the amount of bottles on the tables at all times can get a bit excessive. After a moment of Dong-man heaping praise regarding Euna's appearance, she gives the classic line from my Liberation Notes, "Are you worshipping me?"
인간계가 아닌 것 같아요.
추앙하는 건가요?
날 추앙해요.
Han Seona's character 장미란 stars in a TV series called 아무나 사랑할래요, which can be translated into I want to love anybody or I want to love somebody. If you watched my Liberation Notes, you will recognize this as a short-term objective, like a yearly goal for the oldest daughter.
난 할래. 할 거야. 아무나 사랑할 거야. 난.
진짜 아무나?
진짜 아무나.
One of the core themes the show keeps returning to is the demand for social obligation. The unspoken rule that you must be pleasant and agreeable regardless of whether the people around you deserve any of it. And what makes Dong-man a fun character is that he simply refuses to oblige to those social norms. Not because he's trying to be a contrarian, but because it's just not in him to care. Like my favorite line in the show captures it perfectly. Like,
내 인생이 왜 네 맘에 들어야 되는데요?
he is not incapable of caring. Like he has a great monologue at the pork belly restaurant. Dong-man isn't antagonistic towards people that don't like him, he ignores the haters. Like you get a glimpse of that when he's talking on the phone with Euna about his dream.
은하 씨 힘들게 하는 그거랑 싸우지 마요. 가위 같은 거예요. 상대 안 하면 지나가요. 그냥 지나가게 둬요.
Another theme the show deals with is how success doesn't come independent of others. Like we need a hand in order to get through this world. Dongman needed Pyeonuna to overhaul his script, and Haejin had to fund his work. And the reason Haejin even decided to fund this project was more out of annoyance than merit of the material. Kyungse's best script and most successful movie was inspired by Dongma's real-life nonsense. So the idea that life is too hard on single player is sprinkled throughout the show. Like Euna says it directly in episode 5.
혼자 하면 지쳐요. 옆에서 재밌다, 재미없다 해주는 사람이 있어야 덜 지쳐요. 제가 봐줄게요. 옆에서.
It's also mentioned in a funny way from Haejin when she is ranting about her husband's stubbornness.
감독이란 인간들은 하나같이 자격지심에 쩔어서 더럽게 잘 나가고 싶으면서도 돈 받는 건 자신의 완벽함을 해치는 나약한 도구라고 생각하는 저 찌질한 근성은
And then in one of the best moments of the show, when Dongman realizes that undefined emotion he's been feeling is actually a call for help.
도와줘. 도와달라는 거예요.
And lastly, I think a core idea in the show is about how things we love sometimes cause the most pain, and yet we cannot escape the hold that it has on our lives. I got this from Hwang Jin-man talking about his poetry. In the show, he's a masterful poet, but it causes him too much pain. He would rather become a welder because welding doesn't betray you.
시를 쓸 땐 좌절과 자괴감의 연속이었지만 용접은 지지고 있으면 그냥 일이 됩니다. 마음이 번다 하지 않습니다.
But in his core, his true love is in poetry, which he returns to eventually. Like it might hurt him again, but he can never completely cut himself off from it. And I think the same dynamic is represented between Dongman and Kyungse and Euna and her mom. Like Pyeonuna has decades of trauma and pain from her mother, and finally got to a point where she can be defiant in front of her blunt mother, but couldn't help but get emotional when she learned that her mom had called her impressive.
오정이가 자기 친딸 보고 근사하대.
Yep, so those are some of my thoughts and reactions to We Are All Trying Here. Like I said, Park Haeyoung has a special way of producing and writing her shows. Whenever she releases her next project, I will be there day one. I think she has a special way of making the viewer feel very empathetic towards the characters, even if they are living completely different lives. I live a completely different life than the situations in My Mister or Liberation Notes. I'm not involved in the movie industry at all. And yet the emotions that the characters are experiencing, it just feels very familiar, and you can totally understand exactly what they're going through. I definitely recommend We Are All Trying Here. I think it is one of the best K-dramas of 2026. Thank you for watching. I'll catch you next time. Bye.